All right, welcome to the SnydeReport. As you know, I am your host, Gary Snyder. My guest today, as you can see next to me, Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke. Well, that's a lot to say.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to welcome you, and I want to let you know that we have the new sign-in back, and it's not broken in when I had Bill Maher on or Governor Beshear or even Bernie Sanders or Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses.
No way.
It's broken out for Beto O'Rourke.
I am so honored, and I'm really grateful that you're having me on. Man, that's a list of luminaries to be joining right now. That's some pressure.
And the sign you broke it in. So
Looks good.
I wanted to have you on because you're coming to Indiana for an event this coming weekend. But before we get to that, I just want to take a few minutes and talk about what is happening in Texas with the redistricting halfway through the census cycle, trying to basically gerrymander Democrats, at least at the congressional level, out of existence.
Yeah. So what's interesting, and you've probably seen this, but we've been helped in that the president has been so incredibly clear and transparent about what he's doing. It's not coming from the pretense of we have congressional districts that are drawn unconstitutionally in Texas, or they're depriving people of their voting rights. He just basically said out loud in broad daylight, find me 5 more seats in Texas. And so dutifully, the governor, Greg Abbott, and the Republican majority state legislature just presented maps this week that carve up the state to try to press the Republican advantage by 5 more seats in the state of Texas, where they already hold a majority, of course. But this would be just above and beyond anything that could be justified by the math or the constituency of Republican voters. This is as gerrymandered, meaning members of Congress choosing their own voters instead of the other way around, as you can possibly get. And they're being completely open about why they're doing it, because Trump gets that his policies, cutting Medicaid, transferring hundreds of billions of dollars of American wealth to the richest 1% in the country, the richest people on the planet, really, or these Gestapo tactics that are terrorizing hardworking Americans on a daily basis. This stuff is so deeply unpopular that the narrow hold that he has on power in the House of Representatives will be lost in 2026 unless he can find some other way to rig the game. Hence, what is happening in Texas. But the best part of all of this is that we don't have to accept it. This is not a done deal. We are far from that. And there are a number of ways that we can fight back.
What are those ways? Because I know Gavin Newsom in California, even New York and Pittsburgh and in Illinois have said that they're willing to fight fire with fire. And is this what it's going to come down to in every state? Just a gerrymandered system where if you're a red state, you have all congressional people that are MAGA, and if you're in a blue state, everything is Democrat.
It really will be until you elect people who will change this system. So, Democrats, and I'll say my party is in part to blame for the situation that we're in now. We had the White House, we had the House of Representatives, we had the United States Senate in 2021. There were opportunities like the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act or the For the People Act that would take redistricting out of the hands of politicians and put it into the hands of the citizenry, those people that the politicians purport to represent. And Democrats felt like they had other fires to fight, and I get that. But by not doing that in 2021, when we actually had the power to do it, here we are in 2025, where Trump is using the full force and weight of the federal government to rig this game so that he can keep power in 2026. What that means, of course, Gary, is that more raids by mass plainclothes federal agents without warrants or badges. It means that we're going to have more programs cut by this president that are going to deeply and badly hurt the people that we care about in our lives. And it means that a Republican-controlled Congress will roll out the red carpet for a third Trump term. So, nobody can say with a straight face that they like gerrymandering or they are for it. But given the fact that the other side is using that weapon, for us to just throw our hands up or look to the refs, and there are no refs in this game, hoping that they're going to intervene, that's a sure path to defeat and doom. Instead, we've got to step up and even better than reacting, as Governor Newsom and Hochul and Pritzker and others have done, which they basically said, look, if Texas does this, we'll do that. I'd rather they seize the initiative right now. Why wait to get punched in the face before you punch
Exactly.
back? Why not throw that punch first and throw it harder? But that's just one way that we can fight. The other is that the Democrats in the state legislature in Texas can literally leave the state. It deprives their Republican counterparts of the quorum necessarily to approve these newly drawn maps. It is fraught with all sorts of challenges. The odds are against it working, but it might just prevail. And it might also inspire the country, who is waiting for somebody to finally fight right now. Wherever I go across America, the number one question is not why is Donald Trump doing all this evil shit or this evil stuff, but why are Democrats?
You can say shit if you want. This is a podcast.
Why are they doing all this evil shit? It's why aren't Democrats fighting with everything they've got? Like, are Democrats in positions of power not seeing the same thing that I'm seeing, is what I get asked at these town hall meetings. And so if the Texas State House Dems, this is the last place we would expect it to come from. We don't think of Texas as a hotbed of progressive activism. But if they were to lead the way for the country right now, I think it would be so damn inspiring. And the last thing that we can do is prepare for those maps to be redrawn. If they are, as you can probably imagine, they're going to have to thin out Republican majorities that they have in current districts to add them to current Democrat represented districts. That will make their old districts a little bit more competitive, a little bit more winnable. These new gerrymandered districts are not beyond our reach. And if the wind is at our back, as it was in 2018, you could have some very strong upset elections across the board in the state of Texas. So each of those three courses, I believe, must be pursued in parallel. The quorum break, Democratic governors seizing the initiative, and people in Texas fielding really strong candidates and recruiting the volunteers to go out and knock doors with them right now in 2025 so that we have a hope of winning in 2026.
Beto, can you hold through a quick break?
Absolutely.
You're listening to the Snide Report. We'll be right back. All right, this is the part of the Snide Report where we thank our sponsors, and we have a growing list. So let's start with Robin Winston. Robin has been there when we first sent out our first email, 147 subscribers. We're now over 108,000. So thank you, Robin Winston, and helping us get the podcast going in the right direction. Next up is our good friend, former Congresswoman Jill Long Thompson. Her book, Across the Aisle, Why Bipartisanship Works for America. Get that anywhere you buy your books. Also, former two-term governor, two-term U.S. Senator Evan Bayh. Evan has been a sponsor of the newsletter, now jumps on board with the podcast. Congressman Andre Carson. Congressman Carson has been there from the start. We're glad to have him over here on the newsletter now. He needs your help to win re-election next year. So make sure you support Congressman Carson. Next up, State Representative Cherish Pryor. Cherish has been there from the start on the newsletter, joining us on the podcast now. So is State Senator Greg Taylor. I want to thank Senator Taylor for all of his support through the years. Next, we have a couple of new sponsors. First up is Indiana Citizen. You want to check out their new project, One Heartbeat Away. Do Christian nationalists have an agenda for Indiana? You know, all you have to do is look at the lieutenant governorship and you can see right away that they do. So thank you, Indiana Citizen. Next up is Jump Laundry. You can visit them at jumplaundry.com. They have home pickup. They do your dry cleaning, wash and fold with, I might add, no judgments, and next day service. So if you're in a crunch for time, You don't want to do your own laundry, get a hold of Jump Laundry at jumplaundry.com or at 317-740-5011, and they will take care of all of your laundry needs. Welcome back to the Snide Report. I am your host, Gary Snyder. We are speaking with Beto O'Rourke. You talked about, just before the break, about candidates, recruiting candidates that can win. You've won in Texas at a congressional level, a couple of setbacks at the state level. What's the future hold for Beto in Texas? Because your name is everywhere as a possible candidate to take on, I'd like to say John Cornyn, but I have a feeling it's going to be Paxson.
Yeah, it's really whatever it takes. I want to be as helpful and as useful as I can possibly be. If I conclude that that is as a candidate for the U.S. Senate against Cornyn or Paxton, I will do that. If it is helping candidates who are running in that race and hundreds of other races across the state, we run an organization called Powered by People that does in-person voter registration in a state that doesn't allow you to do it online, and then stays in touch with these newly registered voters to help them navigate the very suppressive and intimidating voting laws that we have in the state. If that's the best use of what I've got, I will do that. But the stakes in this election, I shared earlier, I think it really is for all the marbles, whether we have a constitutional republic, free and fair elections, a government of, by, and for the people, or whether this consolidation of authoritarian power in the hands of the president is completed with Republican control of Congress. I just want to make sure that, given those stakes, that we do everything we can to put ego and personal ambition and career aside and just do what's best. And so, look, if I'm the best person to face the Republican nominee for the Senate, I will do it. If it is somebody else, or if I can play another role in that ticket, or if I can build a ticket as a Senate nominee with strong candidates for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, I'll do that. But the filing deadline in Texas is not until December. There are a lot of really wonderful, talented people who are in the mix right now. So part of my optimism at this moment is that we don't lack for talented people in Texas that we can field in these different positions on the ballot. And I'm just going to continue to get out there, work with people, listen to the folks in Texas, and then decide what I can do that is most helpful from there.
I know your number one fan in Indiana. My sister Katie is going to be watching this. So she is definitely saying you are the best person.
Katie's one of these amazing people who's volunteered for us at a distance, but has also volunteered for us by making the trip to Texas, which is no small feat, right? And braving the, door to door and person to person campaigning in our state. So, I think that's why we were so successful in 18. Honestly, it's people like that who, though we didn't defeat Ted Cruz, we did help 12 Democrats win election to the state house. 2 Democrats win election to the House of Representatives, changing the balance of power there, one of them being Colin Allred. And then across the board, judicial races, appellate court races. We really transformed Texas, so much so that the next time that the Republican legislature convened, they changed the voting laws in the state to make it that much less likely that you could have another election like that. So those who stay in this fight are my heroes.
Another quick question before we get to what you're going to be doing in Indiana. But I've been saying this for a while. I ran for Congress a few years ago, lost to Jim Banks, who's now our U.S. Senator, one of the most horrible people ever to hold office. But I've been saying, and I only bring this up because I heard you say it on an interview. Do you want to be right or do you want to win? Tell us what you mean by that, because they've heard my version over and over.
Yeah, I think that Democrats historically have cared more about being right than they have about being in power, while Republicans, at least currently, care more about power than anything else. They don't care about being right, about being moral, about being ethical, about doing this within the law or following the Constitution. They only care about power, and it shows. It's been absolutely breathtaking the way that the president has abused every institution that matters, the Constitution, the very premise of this country and the Declaration of Independence, that we're all created equal and shall be treated equally. under the law, defying co-equal branches of government, dismantling congressionally mandated programs, defying federal court judges. This guy could give a shit. He just knows that he has a limited window within which to consolidate this power. And it's actually coming down to Texas right now. He's like, look, fuck the rules. I don't care that you're supposed to redistrict at the end of the decade. We're going to do it right now because that's my best bet to be able to hold on and improve the power that I already have. And meanwhile, we're like, hey, you're not supposed to gerrymander and redistricting. And in California, we've set up these citizen-led redistricting commissions.
Yeah.
By the way, I was part of the problem back in the day. I probably applauded that. I thought, man, that's great. We should have that all over the country. The thing is, now with the benefit of hindsight, we realize we unilaterally disarmed in California and New York and these other places where you have independent redistricting commissions, while in Texas and Georgia and these other places, Republicans who control the levers of power can allow their members of Congress to choose their voters. So we've learned an important, painful lesson that you do this either unilaterally across the board, everyone playing by the same rules, or you don't do it at all because, it has tied a hand behind our backs. But having learned that painful lesson, we now have to act upon it and just be ruthlessly focused on the pursuit of power. And then once we have that power, we've got to use it to set things right. And that doesn't mean return to the status quo ante, because that wasn't working for a lot of America. It means being just as dramatic and breathtaking in how we use that power, but for the good, to make sure that you don't have a despot, tyrant, dictator, authoritarian figure like Trump from either party rise to power again in America. That's the existential challenge for our country at this moment, and we've got to be focused on it.
You are coming to Indianapolis on August 3rd. Tell us what you're doing in Indianapolis.
We'll be at 3 p.m. for an all-comers welcomed, no-holds-barred town hall meeting, meaning we could care less if you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, a voter, a non-voter. Just the fact that you're a living, breathing American is what matters to us. And what I have found in doing these town halls across Texas and throughout the country is just listening to one another is so profoundly powerful. Not necessarily listening to me or a Democrat or a politician for that matter, but just people hearing each other out. And a couple of things flow from that. One, folks who have been tempted to despair or thought that they were completely alone in this fight see, 400, 500, 600 people in the room who are just as committed to the future of this country and aren't about to give up either. We also learn ways in which we can take action. That might be signing up with a group that's registering voters, or there's a young woman who's running for Congress and we can get behind her and volunteer for her campaign. Or we can hear beyond the millions who are being cut by Medicaid, the 83,000 jobs that are about to be lost at the VA, most of them veterans who are employed there. These statistics and these numbers can sometimes dull the urgency that we should otherwise feel. When someone steps up at a town hall meeting and says, look, my husband's got Parkinson's. He's on Medicaid right now. If they cut him off Medicaid, he is screwed. Life is over. He will not survive this. This is why I'm fighting for this guy. That's an actual conversation that we had at a town hall meeting just outside of Houston. And when someone steps up and says that, it moves I just don't care how hard your heart is. It moves everyone. And we realize in stark human terms, the cost and the consequence of what is happening in our country right now. And I think it builds the resolve necessary, not just to fight back, but to get off the back foot altogether and onto the front one, and to really take the fight to those who are hurting us right now. So that's at its best what we get out of meetings like these. And so I'm excited to be in Indianapolis this coming Sunday. It's 3 p.m. And again, everyone is welcomed.
We'll put all the details and RSVP up in our newsletter. So where can people help you out, whether they want to give some money, time, whatever?
The group that's registering and staying in touch with newly registered voters in Texas is called Powered by People. You can find it on the web at poweredxpeople.org. And look, you can volunteer for us, as your sister knows full well, from a distance. So when we register these folks, sometimes it's a phone call or a text to help them navigate what kind of voter ID they need in Texas, where their nearest polling location is, when early voting starts. all that stuff. We can use volunteers wherever you are. And hopefully I've made the case that what happens in Texas doesn't just affect the people of Texas. It is going to determine the outcome for all of us, no matter where you live in America, including in Indiana.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Gary Snyder. He is not. He is Beto O'Rourke, and we are out.